oh my God, the tantrums are so bad right now. Like, I'm sorry to cry. I'm just so overwhelmed with him. He's such a good boy, and it's like he has this, for lack of better words, like a Sour Patch Kid thing. Like, he does something so sweet, and then moments later, he's just punching himself in the head and frustrated. And I recognize it because, quite honestly, I feel like that's me, just beating myself up silently, and he's just outwardly expressing it. And
this is Ashley, and this is a year ago by the time of this recording, and she's in the beginning phases of the Autism Turnaround Program, and it's hard. I mean, it hurts me when I'm listening to it because I remember how bad she felt, and I remember when my son was in a similar situation. It's so freaking hard. But I wanted to show you this. So as I was recording Ashley's turnaround story and her transformation, I realized that I had these recordings of her and I and our conversations as she went through the hardest times through the turnaround process. I didn't just want to show you the glorious after pictures. I didn't want to just show you how good it is now, how she's overcome these tantrums and how she's in a completely different place. Didn't want to just show you how she lost 27 pounds in 2 months. That's all very great and it's inspiring. But I wanted you to see how much she sacrificed and how difficult it was when she went through it and how long it actually takes. Because when the women that she went through this process with, she's one of the few ones still standing. And that is because it's not easy. So I wanted to make this like a documentary where we give you an insight into the world and the thoughts and the battles that Ashley had when she was going through the program a year ago. So I really hope that you will receive this with your hearts and understand that this is a massive effort that lies behind this transformation story. She's transformed her body, she has transformed her child, she's transformed her outlook on life, she's transformed her soul, and it's very inspiring. So let's start with listening to where she's at today.
And he was about 3 years old, and he smiled for the first time for a picture. And I cried out. I just boo-hooed because I was like, it's happening. He's there. He's here. My body dropped 27 pounds within a matter of 2 months. And it was, to me, it didn't feel like I was just lost a bunch of fat because I was cutting my diet so low. For me, it was like actual weight lifted off of me. I could breathe. I could sit and enjoy. So that's what it felt like. I mean, so immediately I started to lose weight, and it wasn't like this 1,200 calorie diet thing like I tried right after I had the kids, where it was just starving myself. I actually started to eat more. So from when we started, definitely eye contact. He loves to look at me now, and he loves to come and sit in my lap. And now when he wants my attention, he'll come and like get my whole head. Mm. He seeks that now. He never, he did when he was a baby, but then obviously when things started to change, and he just went to where he just had no interest in any other human.
I'm with Ashley, and I'm so excited about the conversation that we are going to have because it's got so many components to it. There's so many incredible aspects to your transformation story, Ashley. You sent me loads of pictures that we're going to share on the description site. But I would like you to actually begin. I've known you for a while. I've followed your transformation. I remember our first calls and how stressed you were and how overwhelmed you were. So maybe if you take us back to actually before you got pregnant and before the symptoms that would have led to a diagnosis, in your own words, what kind of a life were you living? Because that can also tell us a bit about who you are, where you're from, and what kind of Ashley were you back then?
So it's interesting. So I was born in the 80s. Diet culture in the 90s was horrendous. It was have a Diet Coke and a stick of gum, and that's considered healthy. And so it's not, I don't think it was lack of my parents' understanding. I think that it was just our culture. So, I was raised in a household that was like, we drink Diet Coke, we eat diet foods, it's low fat this, it's processed, some, not as much. But I grew up in a household that tried to be healthy by the standards that were given at the time, which were not healthy. I mean, I didn't understand what health was, honestly, until I joined this tribe and you explained it to me about what my body needed. So at the time I grew up, I was a fairly active child. I played a lot of sports. We played outside all the time. And then when I got into high school, I played high school sports. And then I went on to college. Now, when college was when everything changed, when I was more accountable for myself. It was, I didn't eat healthy. I started to drink with friends, socially, I guess not in abundance. I've never really been a big drinker, but it was socially. And I started to gain weight because it was easy to eat processed food. The environment I was in, I went from a country town that I was born and raised in to a really big city where I went to university, and I lived there, and it was just tons of pollution.
What city was that, Ashley?
In Columbia, South Carolina. I mean, compared to most, it doesn't seem big, but from the country town that I grew up in, but Columbia, South Carolina, I went to the University of South Carolina, and there just wasn't a lot of green, no trees. I mean, they had a couple patches of grass that, were lawn for people to walk in, but it just wasn't a very natural, I guess, area. But so I grew up, went to college there, and then immediately got into the cycle of push, push, push. There was never a time in my life that I was ever told that it's okay to just want to be a mom. It's okay to prepare yourself to be a mom, to learn how to cook healthy, to take care of yourself and prepare that way. It was always, you have to take care of yourself. This is the age, this is the era where women have to make money. You have to go, 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 and at whatever expense. And there was no concern for mental health or physical health in that sense. It was just make money. If you're somebody, then you have to have a good job, and that's status. So that's the path that I went down. And I took a job in Georgia and lived outside of Savannah for about 8 years, and it was a sales job. So I was on the road, never really considered health. I mean, I've exercised always because I love to walk, and at the time I loved to run, but I was running half marathons. So it wasn't ever a healthy balance of, here, let's run a mile. No, it was, let's go run 13 miles and let's not eat the appropriate foods. And at the time I was drinking, taking clients out to dinners, late nights. I've always, before this tribe, prided myself that I could sleep with 4 hours and be fine, and just completely disconnected from my body. And it was a beautiful, just a beautiful thing that I thought was happening. But what I was doing was I was destroying the phone line to who I was and who I am. And it just, and then I met my husband. We met at a wedding, actually. And he is really into health and fitness. And he just told me, he was like, these exercises that you do are a little intense. Do you want to take the volume a little?
So
and he did
amazing. The way
I know,
that
and he did CrossFit. So that's what was interesting. And I guess I was like, yeah, I guess we could drop the mileage down, but we have to run. We have to do this. We have to do that. And we drank and we had fun together and ate a lot of unhealthy food, and just never, I feel like I never stopped to listen and say, this just doesn't feel good anymore. This isn't me. This isn't my life. I felt like I had to keep up with the man and make the money and do the things. And it just never, I never stopped. So I created an atmosphere and an environment within myself, a toxic environment within myself that created autism, in my opinion. You know, prior to this tribe, I would have never looked internally and said, hey, everything that you've done for the past 30 years has prepared you for this, and good and bad. And now I can look at it with grace and say, you did do that, but it's okay. We can go back and we can fix it for the most part. So
Did you feel like it was uh like back and forth between unhealthy and eating unhealthy foods and drinking alcohol and then punishing your body, running really long stretches?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was my go-to. That's what I thought health was. I was like, no, you get to eat what you want, you get to drink what you want. If you go out real late and you drink 2 bottles of wine, no, you get up the next day, you sweat the wine out. But then that same night you can go back out and drink more and eat pizza when, you got a buzz or whatever. And it just was, and then it was just a constant back and forth of beat yourself up, then go, reward yourself. You had a good week. Now it's time at the end of the week to go reward yourself with going out and drinking and hanging out. It was a lot of back and forth.
And how did that work? So how did that feel in your body? Did you even feel anything back then, or were you numb to what was going on?
To tell you the truth, I honestly can say I have been so numb. I think it was until it's almost like I look back at it and I'm like, was that even really me? I don't remember it. There's no feeling that I felt in that moment. Like now, I take the time and I experience things and I feel the feelings, but then it was just like stuff, 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 stuff. And yeah, I never felt any of it. And it's weird. I feel like I finally woke up about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when my son, he never received a formal diagnosis. It's interesting. We prayed about it, and son, if he would ever seek a diagnosis again. And I felt like that was an answer to prayer, because I was like, I don't think we need to diagnose. Let's see if we can get rid of the symptoms. And that at that time is when I was like, this is not working anymore. I'm not happy. I don't like to feel hungover. I don't like to be drunk. I don't like to be outside of my head. I don't like to eat the foods that make me feel terrible. Dairy always made me feel so bad, and I always would have a bad cold and just runny nose and congestion constantly and these rashes. And I was just like, what is this? And when I took all of that out of my diet and we changed our life, those things started to fade away. And I was just like, it's not worth it anymore, like at all.
But take us back to your pregnancy and having your children quite close to each other. You were pregnant 2 times with not that big of a space between your pregnancies. So take us back to that time, and then what happened when you became a mom?
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with PCOS at the age of 24. Had tons of cysts on my ovaries. Now I can look back and say it had a lot to do with the food I ate and the alcohol and all of that. So I was told, it may be difficult for you to have children. So it never really was in the forefront of my mind. I was like, all right, I'm just going to live this life to the fullest, make as much money as I can, and, that'll be it. Well, then I met my husband and we started to pray, and he was like, I'd like to have children. And I was like, I would too. So we started the process. Very fortunately, I didn't have to go to a fertility clinic. I was able to become pregnant on my own after about a year. And that's when the mentality of, and I don't know where this came from, was you get to eat what you want. You are pregnant, enjoy it,
I
live
remember
it
that
up.
one. Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't know where that came from, because that's so, oh my gosh, it's just ignorant. But I ate, oh gosh, I gained 100 pounds. And I was And it's interesting. I mean, I exercised throughout my entire pregnancy because that has been, even though at the time it was an abusive exercise, it still has always been a place that I felt I could escape and
Yeah.
just hang up me for a little bit and then just go and be mindless. And so fortunately I didn't have hypertension or any of that, but it just wasn't healthy. I ate so much. I probably ate 4,000 calories a day. I mean, just, ugh. And so I had my first son, and he was born, and at 2 months old, we found out that he had a hole in his heart. And it's a VSD, and unfortunately, it still hasn't closed. But interestingly enough, God has put a tissue there that is like creating like a windsock, so it's not a bad situation. So that, I think that was when God was like, all right, get your act together. It's time to get your act together. And I didn't. And I got pregnant again very quickly. My son was 6 months old, my first son, and I found out I was pregnant again. And we were super excited, but it was also very stressful because I didn't think I could have kids, and I went from one to here's two now. And with having a new baby and pregnant again, I didn't eat as much and I didn't gain as much weight because I was really sick, but I neglected my body. I didn't sleep when I was tired because I was getting up with a 6-month-old. I didn't eat the appropriate foods. I couldn't tell you. I mean, there would be days sometimes that I would get like one meal in. And so my body was the last thing to think of. And then now that I've gone through the tribe, and I was undermethylated, but I was taking tons of folic acid, tons of it, because my doctor was like, this is what you need. This is what you need. Without, and I can't blame them. You know, I have no ill will against any doctors, but I wasn't doing what was right for my body. And every time I would take these prenatal vitamins, I'd get so sick, but I was like, no, I have to keep these down. This is the only thing that I'm doing. And I just didn't take care of myself, from the lack of rest to it just, I completely forgot who I was in the whole process. I didn't find much joy in just being a mom. I was like, no, I have to get this done. This is the job. And it just, I don't know. It was interesting. I just left myself, and it was numb a lot of the time.
And what did you observe in your children and in yourself, in your own body, as they grew and went from baby stage to toddler and onwards? Try to take us back to that time. What did that feel like for you and your husband?
I just remember a lot of overwhelm. You know, I'm the baby of my family. So my children are the last grandchildren to be born. My parents are retired. They've had, 6 other grandkids that they've taken care of. So we didn't have much help. And unfortunately, my husband's parents have passed on. So it was just the two of us. And I felt like I'm grateful to God that we have a relationship founded in Christ. And that was, a big part of when we met each other. That's going to be the first. And I don't think we would still be married if we weren't. It took a lot of prayer, and having 2 little kids that close. I mean, any mom with twins can probably attest to this. There's just no time to really feel. I don't even remember what I felt like, to tell you the truth. It was just tired all the time. And it felt like you went from one catastrophe to the next, one diaper to one meal to one this to did I shower today? Did I do this today? So it felt like catastrophe after catastrophe, and just, it's hard to look at it because it was so beautiful at the time, but it was a lot of trauma too on me because I just had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't know to say, hey, I'm exhausted. I need help. And I didn't reach out to the tribe that I did have. So.
And what symptoms did you see in your children?
So this is an interesting one. This is one that I've really now can go back and understand a little better. My older son always wanted my husband, always. And I couldn't figure that out. I was like, this is my first baby. He loves me. I'm his mommy. Like, what's he doing? And every time he would cry, especially after I had my second son, he didn't want me. He wanted his dad.
Wow.
And I don't think I was a safe space for him because I was just so nervous and worried all the time and stressed out. And I would kind of bark at my husband, like, you're not doing anything. Help me do this. I do this all day long. I'm tired. I need a break. I need a break. I need a break. I just remember that word. And I think he thought that I just maybe didn't want him. And to this day, he and I, this last year and a half, have really built a close relationship back, me and my 5-year-old, almost 6. But he still is very close to his dad. Now, in my little one, so I just remember him always having these bright red cheeks, and they put us on GERD medication when he was 2 months old. And I just remember my gut saying, I don't think this is right. Something's wrong. I couldn't breastfeed because unfortunately my body didn't produce, but it just felt wrong. But I kept doing it. And I was like, they're the doctors. They know. Then he kept getting these ear infections. And one night it turned into croup and we ended up in the hospital and they gave him a bunch of medication. And I just remember thinking, like, this isn't how this is supposed to be. He's only 6 months old. This doesn't make sense. And then he got a rash at about, I believe it was 17 or 18 months old. But they went ahead and wanted to do his vaccinations. And I was like, they know what to do. They know what's right.
Yeah.
And it just was a whole, I can't say, I would never say it was vaccinations because I don't think it was, honestly. I think it was a culmination of everything that we had gone through. And he was eating cheese and crackers and goldfish and just trash. And I just remember him just like going into this, just kind of like, we called it the Declan coma because that's what it felt like. He went from this baby that we have so many videos of him just talking and laughing and saying funny stuff and to just gone, just glazed over. And that's when it hit my husband and I that, at first we did turn to alcohol and we would get a babysitter and we would go and we would just drink and drink and drink and drink and eat and eat and eat. And then we both were laying in the bed one night and I was just like, something's wrong with our son. And he was like, I know. And I started to look and I found Dr. Nemechek's stuff. And that was the first time I'd ever heard somebody say, you don't have to just deal with this for life. You can help your child.
And so at this point you had this feeling that it might be autism, that you might be getting a diagnosis, but you weren't gonna go for that.
So my husband, it's interesting. My husband's a special education director here in the U.S. and he manages the special services and special needs for a group of students at a school. And he's actually the one that was like, and he never said it. He would never say it to me. And I guess out of fear that maybe he didn't want to hear it either. But he was like, something's off. He's a few bubbles off. He's a few bubbles off. And I was just like, what does that mean? And then a friend of mine's son was autistic. And she was like, have you ever considered autism? And I love her. She and I are very close. But her path is quite different than mine. Very much into the autism community. And it's just that wasn't the path that I wanted. And I was like, no, I haven't considered that. And then I laid that night and I Googled until probably 4:00 in the morning. And I knew in my heart, I was like, this is what it is. And I was going to call the doctors and do that. But then I found Dr. Nemechek's stuff and I'm a woman of faith. And I was like, all right, God, if this is it, we'll give it a try. What's there to lose? It's just, at the time, I mean, his protocol was very simple, which now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, but at the time it was it was an interesting thing. And we tried that. I guess it was about maybe 6 months. I'm trying to think exactly how long. And we saw some change. The eye contact started to come back and I was like, I think that was the first thing that I was just like, okay. But at the time we did drop gluten and dairy too. So for us, it was, now I look back, I'm like, it was probably the gluten dairy being out of his diet more than the protocol. But
that, and probably some of it might be the olive oil, because it's increasing the DAO enzyme, and that's lowering the histamine so that it deals with the undermethylation that's in your family as well. It can
Absolutely.
be many things, but you then saw, wow, something is changing.
Yeah.
Then what happened after that?
It was a glimmer of hope. It was, I know that this can be helped. So I started to research, and I found your name. Interesting enough, I mean, any mother that's been through this, I'm sure you did the same. The research is endless. And I would lay in bed at night, and technology is fantastic, but it also is a curse too, because you can just go down a rabbit hole. And that's what I did. And then I found you, and I was like, wait a minute. And then I started watching your videos, and I saw the stuff about your son, and I was like, she can do it. She did it. And I showed my husband. I woke him up in the middle of the night, and I was like, we're doing this. This is going to happen. And he was like, okay. So that's when I joined the mindset course. And I'm not going to lie, I was so skeptical, because I was just like, in my mind, I was like, is this just a sales pitch to buy something? But then I started to realize, I was like, no, she's training me to have the intuition to do it myself. It's just, you were basically taking knowledge and handing it to my brain. And I didn't see that at first. And then when we started, and I started to heal myself, I remember I told my husband, I was like, I've got to have 45 minutes a day to myself. And that's when I would do my coursework and get in a short exercise. That was, I mean, at the time it was a walk, and I would listen to a lot of your audios. And things started to change in me. I started to calm down. I wasn't so scared of the word autism anymore. It didn't scare me, because I was like, you don't have any hold on me, because I can stop you. And then my son, he started to come to me. And I'll never forget, because in all of the pictures, it was just like he would be like this and never look at the camera. And so I was like, hey, let's just try a selfie. And he looked at himself, and then he looked at me, and he saw that I was smiling. And he was about 3 years old, and he smiled for the first time for a picture. And I cried out. I just boo-hooed, because I was like, it's happening. He's there. He's here. And then he started to sing. And he still, I mean, he's just my song baby. He sings all the time. And then words started to develop. And then just the other day, and it's interesting, because words didn't completely go away. He was not nonverbal, but it was, you couldn't understand any of it. And it was very random, and it wasn't consistent. He would never say mama, and he would never say daddy, and he would never say any of that. Now I'm mom. He calls me mom. And now he comes and gets me. And just the other day, he was like, come play with me, please. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So it just, I had to change. At first I went into with the mindset of, I'm going to do everything to change everything for him. But at the time I was still not getting the rest, not taking care of myself, not treating myself with respect. But that has slowly evolved to where I don't even recognize, even a year ago. I mean, I went back and listened to some of the audios I sent you, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, you were in an incredibly stressed phase of your life, really overwhelmed. And what really is so impressive about you is that you were so overwhelmed and sad and crying and stressed about this whole change, because there were so many things that you weren't seeing and hadn't felt about yourself and in your body, that then came full on confronting you. And so you were scared, but you leaned into it. And I do see that for moms who have faith, it's easier for moms who are in faith to lean in to the unknown, to the uncomfortable, to the challenge, to the dark valleys in life. And I really saw that in you. So it was a scary process, and it was also a process that took a while for you, but you went for it, even through the phases where you didn't know what was going on.
And some days, I'm not gonna lie, some days I still don't know what's going on.
No,
And
we don't.
I laugh and I tell my husband, but the interesting thing now is be the person God created you to be. And the God-given right for us to raise our children, we just give it away so easily. And it's just like, no, you tell me what to do, whether it be our own parents or doctors or TV or Instagram, anybody. No, you tell me what I'm supposed to do. But instead, when I started to feel it, you're right, it was a flood of emotions. It was like, at first I had a bunch of guilt. The guilt hit first. And I feel like that's why I was constantly sad, because I was like, why did I not wake up? I'm 30 and now I'm 37, but at the time I was 35 years old, and I was like, 35 years old, how did I not know these things?
This is where I want to take you back to the Ashley that was going through this process that she's describing, how she never really fed her child healthy foods, and what happened when she took away all these stimulating junky foods that her children loved, because that was incredibly hard too. So let's look at what that sounded like back then when she called me to get my help.
Oh my God, the tantrums are so bad right now. Like, I'm sorry to cry. I'm just so overwhelmed with him. He's such a good boy, and it's like he has this, for lack of better words, like a Sour Patch Kid thing. Like, he does something so sweet, and then moments later, he's just punching himself in the head and frustrated. And I recognize it, because quite honestly, I feel like that's me, just beating myself up silently, and he's just outwardly expressing it. And I completely threw away all the junk. I got rid of the shit that was in my house, and I did that about 2 weeks ago. And my older son, I'm like, he's grown almost a half an inch. He's filling out. He doesn't have dark circles under his eyes, but my son Declan, who I'm in the tribe for, he just refuses everything. And when I say he refuses it, it's throwing the plates off the table, just utter chaos. And I knew it would be hard. I didn't come into this lightly, and obviously this is not the road less traveled. I knew it would be the narrow way, and that it would be difficult, but I am immersed in it right now. And I don't know, I guess right now I'm just looking like, when you went through this with your son and you got rid of all the junk crap food and you started to offer him the new options, how long did this craziness last? Or did you go through the craziness? Did he scream for 20 minutes or more? And just, I feel like I'm constantly in fight or flight around him, because if I don't offer him what he wants, he flips out. And for the last 2 weeks, I've said, I'm done with that. I'm done with the shit. If I want him to change and we want to change, we've got to be done with these crappy foods. And I'm eating healthier. My husband he's always been a healthy eater. He really is into fitness and things like that. So he's always been on board, but I'm not cheating. I'm not eating shit. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And it's just, I'm still being met with horrible opposition from my little one. And he has his select things that he'll eat. And I've had to resort to giving him the organic fruit pouches with veggies in them, just because he's losing weight. He lost almost 1.5 pounds over the course of the last 2 weeks, which, I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but it started to scare me a bit. So I don't know why I'm taking it on as trauma. It doesn't have to be this way, I know, but for me, we've lived the last 2 years gluten and dairy free and ate every garbage snack you can eat to stay that way. And I kept my head tucked in and was like, we're at least eating gluten and dairy free, but didn't ever offer my children a vegetable or meat or anything that had any substance to it. And I'm just sick of that. I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't want to stay in this dysfunctional familiar. I want so badly to see healing and to see myself get better. And I don't know. I don't even really have much sense to this message other than I'm here and I'm trying. And I thought the harder that I pushed and the harder I worked, because in my mind, everything I've ever done, if I work hard and put my head down and put my nose down to the grind, it turns out right. And this is the total opposite of that. The harder I push, the worse it gets and the worse I feel. So I kind of don't know what the next steps are. I'm not anywhere where I want to give up. I don't know what the next step is. I've got a lot of praying to do, a lot of soul searching to do today, because I'm not going to give up on these healthy meals. At the very least, I have to continue to give variety, and I have to do what's right for them. I can't face my Lord and Savior one day and not have done what I was supposed to do with my son. I can't. So I know that now, and I was convicted over it I guess it's been about 2.5 weeks ago when I was making the grocery list, that I completely emptied the cart and put all the shit back and just went around and got that, like, only healthy foods. And I've been looking at multiple websites and learning how to make breads and different items, hidden vegetables in muffins, because I offer also the cooked version, but usually that's refused, but he'll eat it through, like, if it's in a little muffin form, maybe a bite. And I don't know, it's a lot. The tantrums are a lot. And maybe just any encouragement that you have, or obviously your path is going to be totally different than mine, but what it was like for you when you had Bertram go through the complete clean out. I remember you telling us about that on podcasts and in the beginning of several of the videos, and I just would love to hear maybe some encouragement from a mom who's been through this. And did you go and cry? And was it hard for you? And did you ever feel defeated, even though you know you're doing what's right?
Okay, let's take a little break now to talk about what it is that Ashley means when she says that she needed a mirror to get back to that authority. And we're so used to, as moms who are in a desperate situation and our children are not speaking, they are not sleeping, they don't want to eat real foods, they have tantrums, they're eloping, they're aggressive, they're not bonding. And we're thinking, what if this continues into their adult years? They won't be able to have friends, they won't be able to be independent in the future. So we desperately reach out for other people, for practitioners, other moms, therapists, protocols and diets, to get someone to tell us what to do. And the way that we work through that in the autism turnaround process is not the easy way, but my role, my job, and my mission and passion is to get moms back to that state where they can find those answers and trust that when I look at my child and I see symptoms, it's a message for me about something that needs to change in my mindset, in my nervous system, in my environment, in the food and the lifestyle, in the bio-individual nutrition. And the way that we get there is by healing ourselves. We can only heal our children to the level that we've healed ourselves. And that is difficult. That's what takes time inside the program. That's why it's been so hard for Ashley. And that's because when we learn that, we need to understand that for ourselves first. We need to understand what every symptom that we've ever had in our body, when we have a symptom like cellulite or anxiety or weight gain or constipation or sleeplessness or fear, anxiety, depression, what caused that in my mindset, in my environment, nature deficiency, emotional and physical healing needed, inner child is completely desperate, or bio-individual nutrition for me. But in order to feel that, in order to get to that authority and that expertise, we actually also have to remove the blockers, the things that made us numb. The trauma that we have from childhood, we need to face that in order to heal that, in order to be able to feel our bodies. Because here's what the big problem is. When we don't want to feel the uncomfortable parts of our lives and our past and our childhood and the problems that we have in our body, we also cannot feel the good things. We cannot connect to the body. When Ashley is talking about cortisol types and she's talking about being numb, when we block out uncomfortable feelings, we also cut ourselves off from the wisdom of the body, the answers that are within the body, the answers that will tell us what to do, what to feed our children, how to heal our children, and how to heal ourselves. Which means that when we go through the turnaround process, we actually have to feel our body, our trauma, our feelings, and reconnect to our body and reconnect to our inner child. And that's part of the process that she went through that got her to where she's at today.
It's not perfect. I mean, it's not a linear journey. This is not, he jumped from severe autism to perfectly fine. No, we have bad days, and that's okay. But I can go back and I go back to my journal and I'm like, all right, last night I didn't cook everything homemade. He had, whatever, crackers or something. And I'm like, maybe that's what the cause is. And I can have, and not just that, but, or did he not sleep? Or did I not sleep? Am I taking in too much information from the news? Like, I can look at the full picture and actually pick it up, look at it and say, there's more to this than just, you're not going to snap your fingers and fix it. Let's go along the journey. We know what to do. I feel like now I have a foundation and I'm like, okay, we can build from this. There's so many pieces to the puzzle and so many facets. So it's been a journey and it was hard and it's still hard some days, but now I'm not scared anymore. I was running scared at first and I would come to you and I was like, no, you tell me how to fix it. Tell me how to fix it. Tell me how to fix it. When in all reality, it was like, no, stop, you fix it.
Trusting that the ability to heal this for yourself and your children is within you. So I always trusted you to be the one who found those tools through that journey, and you did. Ashley, if I'm looking at the pictures of your children then and now, and looking at you and your photos of your body then and now, there's a big difference. Can you try and describe how the change that happened changed your body and your children, and why it is that changing us and changing our body actually ends up changing our children as well? It's connected. What's changed in your body from then to now?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we changed our diet. That was one of the first things that we did. And it wasn't like an unhealthy change of diet where we just stopped eating. No, it was, I remember watching your videos and I was like, oh my gosh, can we do this cold turkey? And I didn't. So we transitioned small things. We were like, okay, he ate a ton of goldfish. We ate a ton of just crackers and cheese, like the charcuterie boards of what everybody thinks is amazing. I'm like, that was our life. We had that a lot. And we just started to transition the things to, we went off of full dairy to goat cheese. And then we went to gluten-free crackers. And now, obviously, we don't really do much of any of that. But it was small changes with our diets at first, and we eliminated the gluten and dairy. Now, my husband still has dairy in its whole form, and so does my older son, but they don't have any issues with it. They cut it out completely initially. And we noticed my older son started to lose weight pretty rapidly. So we added it back for his health. And it, we tested it to make sure, hey, is this going to be bad for him mentally? And it wasn't. So for him, it worked. But for me and my younger son, we've noticed it's a no go, like
Mm.
never. So that was the part. And I started to cook everything homemade now. At first, it was a lot of packaged stuff. And it was, I just wanted to transition to gluten free. And I fell into the trap of, here, it's so easy. Here, just buy everything packaged gluten free that you had with gluten in it. I gained like 15 pounds doing that because I didn't realize how many more calories a lot of that stuff had.
Yeah.
And, and and then I started to make everything homemade, and then my exercise started to change. My husband introduced me to weightlifting, and he was like, "Here," and he showed me how to do it properly. And he was like, "Slow down. This is not a sprint." Because I was like getting in there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I got to lift weights, and it's got to be heavy, and I got to do all this stuff." And he was like, "What are you doing?" Like,
Amazing.
so I changed my workout. I love to exercise. I still do. That's one thing that has not changed. And I make sure now I exercise every day, but it varies. I check my energy and I'm like, okay, do I have enough energy to go and lift weights today? If I don't, I'll drop the kids off at school and I'll go walk. If I do have the energy, I'll go to the gym and I'll do 45 minutes. Sometimes I do an hour. At first, when I first was in full blown cortisol, it was here's 11 minutes and that's it. And I felt like I was drained and I'd have to come home and nap. And that's when I really started listening to my body. And I realized,
For those who don't understand what full-blown cortisol is, can you explain what that is and how that played out for you?
no, absolutely. So for me, um, my hormones in my body, the cortisol that's released in your body, I guess it's more of your fight or flight constantly. I was in, and that I've lived my entire life that way. Everybody knows me as the funny person, haha, all the time, always on go. What I realize now is I was always in fight or flight. I'm such a people pleaser. I wanted to just go, 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 go. So even when I was absolutely drained, my body was just running off of this adrenaline that would pump through my body. It felt like I was being chased by a tiger when I would just sit down on the couch. And that's why I would just push through it. And when you keep pushing through that, you release more and more cortisol, and then it just skews your hormones. My hormones were a mess. And I didn't know it because it was just survival. And our bodies are so amazing that we just survive. And I was surviving off of this, but it wasn't living. I wasn't enjoying it. And then when I started to feel into my body and I stopped, and I'll never forget the first time I tried to meditate in prayer, I was so uncomfortable. And I was just like, this is taking forever. It was a 24-minute one. And I felt like it took probably an hour and a half for me to listen to, because I kept stopping it and I would get up and stop it and get up. And finally I was like, all right, I have to relax. So I went and got in the bathtub and listened to it because I was like, I can't move in the bathtub. And then it started to get easier. And then I started to fall asleep. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm falling asleep during meditation. I never nap. And then I started to feel what it felt like to relax. And then that's when my body tanked on me. That's when I tried to work out again, I went to the gym and I couldn't even walk on the treadmill. I was so tired. I felt like I was going to pass out. And that's when my body said, okay, it's time to refuel, redo. And that's what cortisol felt like to me. I don't have the technical terms, but
Yeah,
that's
it's
what it
such a good
felt like to
description.
me. And it just felt like I was building from zero and had to just go slowly. And now I can go and enjoy a hard workout if my body is fueled right, if I've rested. If not, I'm just like, I'm not running from a tiger today. So I can just rest or read a book. So
And what differences did you see in your body when you actually stopped running those long stretches and stopped punishing your body and started to slowly add some weights, some more kindness towards yourself, some more patience, some more peace, more of the prayer meditations and real food. So what's it like now, your body, if you describe your body now compared to then?
So immediately, I can say this because I was that person that weighed myself every day. It was at first, it was a beat up thing. And it was like, you have to maintain this. But then my body dropped 27 pounds within a matter of 2 months. And it was, to me, it didn't feel like I was just lost a bunch of fat because I was cutting my diet so low. For me, it was like actual weight lifted off of me. I could breathe, I could sit and enjoy. So that's what it felt like. I mean, so immediately I started to lose weight. And it wasn't like this 1,200 calorie diet thing like I tried right after I had the kids, where it was just starving myself. I actually started to eat more. I remember you were like, you need, if, we did the test, and I remember, like, I'm a carb person. And I remember started thinking when I was little, I used to love to eat oatmeal on nights that my mom would cook something that I didn't want to eat. She'd let me have oatmeal. And I was
Mhm.
like, gosh, I wonder if I could get some gluten-free oatmeal. And I started eating that. And I was like, gosh, this is really good. And I would stay full longer. And I was full until lunch. And I didn't try to not eat. I just remember I thought I was eating more. But in honesty, I just was feeding myself the stuff my body needed. And I ate a ton of oatmeal. That first couple months, I just remember, I mean, this was about 8 months, 7, 8 months ago. The first 2 or 3 months, I ate oatmeal a lot. and And I ate other things, obviously, but I just remember thinking, like, these carbs that I thought were terrible for me, they were helping me, and I felt good. And I ate it, and I just remember feeling like it's like a comfort meal, because I remember eating that as a kid, being happy and being like, thank God I didn't have to eat that meatloaf, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because
it was,
some people actually with the meat and the heavy food, it's like we need to keep a fire going. So for some people, heavy foods and a lot of meat can actually have the opposite effect. So it's putting out the fire. It's lowering the energy levels. And for others, meat is exactly what's needed to get the same comfort and the same results as you're getting. So it's really important to understand what is it that my body needs right now, and those needs can change as well. So incredible. And then what does it feel like to be in your body now? So the difference between the way that your body was, the way that it felt to be in your body before your pregnancy, after your pregnancy, and the way that it feels to be in your body now. Can you describe that, Ashley?
absolutely. So for me, prior to having children, I look back at pictures, and everybody says this, like, gosh, to look the way I did in my teenage years, whatever. But I just was, I felt trapped in that body. I didn't treat it well. I felt heavy. And it wasn't necessarily that I weighed more, because I didn't, but I just felt heavy all the time. And I felt just like this pressure. It's interesting. I thought it was asthma my whole life. And until this past year, it's not asthma, it's stress on my chest. I mean, I even had an inhaler that my doctor prescribed, and I don't feel that stress I mean, and I do have stressful days. I mean, everybody does, but now I know what to do to handle that. And I'm equipped with the tools. But I remember after my pregnancy, I had gotten so heavy and just my joints hurt. We live in a 2-story home. I didn't want to run up the stairs. I was always like, honey, will you grab that while you're up there? And I would do everything I could do to not have to go up the stairs, because I just was heavy. And now I feel strong. I've prayed and I've asked God, I'm like, all right, God, what do you want my body to do? What does it need to do? And right now in my heart, I feel like I need to be strong. I need to be capable I mean, my children still want to be picked up. They're 4 and 5. They're still small. And my 4-year-old, every once in a while, and he hasn't had one in a long time, but if he were to have a tantrum, I want to physically be able to help him, calm him down. And I want him to be able to sit on my lap and to be close to me and to not be separated by the layer of fat that I would have created. So for me, I feel strong and I feel capable. And there's room for improvement, absolutely, but I feel good. I even stopped dyeing my hair. I stopped. I mean, this is my natural hair. My family hadn't seen it in 20 years.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
And what symptoms did he have that he doesn't have anymore? So if you look at what he did before and the way that you look at him and his behavior now, what differences do you see?
So from when we started, I mean, definitely eye contact. He loves to look at me now, and he loves to come and sit in my lap. And now when he wants my attention, he'll come and like get my whole head. He seeks that now. He never, I mean, well, he did when he was a baby, but then obviously when things started to change, and he just went to where he just had no interest in any other humans. Now he has interest in me. He has interest in his brother. He's 4, so we have a lot of typical 4-year-old behavior. But now I can see, you know, that's what he's upset about is typical for a 4-year-old and their perception of life at the time. Whereas before, it would be meltdown after meltdown after meltdown.
So if you're thinking right now, as you're listening to Ashley before, the things that she was dealing with as she went through the process, this was a year. This is actually only a year ago. Think about that. It can feel like a long time, but a year from tantrums and from lack of contact and a child that's she describes it as a coma and non-reachable to a child that's laughing and bonding and smiling, and her losing 27 pounds in 2 months. If you want to know what that is and what that feels like, go to barefootautismwarriors.com and click on courses, or contact me at contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, because I really want to talk to you. I and my team, we are available to have a conversation with you about what's going on in your life that's similar to what Ashley is going through, and how can we come up with a strategy and a game plan for you. You simply write me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, and in the subject line, please write game plan call, and we'll set up a time where we can talk about this, because I want you to experience this as well. So let's get back to Ashley's story.
And I do have to mention this because I feel like maybe it could save a mom from going through this. We tried the detox method right when I first started the tribe. And I remember seeing that diatomaceous earth, and I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And I replaced the inulin from Nemechek with the diatomaceous earth. Oh my goodness. It was horrible because none of us were ready for it. He was not ready for it. And it ramped his symptoms up. And these meltdowns were just unrecognizable because I was trying to take a shortcut.
So important. Thank you so much for mentioning that.
And I mean it with my whole heart. Please just don't take shortcuts. Take the time to get to know your child. Take the time to get to know yourself. Because now I know diatomaceous earth may not be the appropriate path for him. And I'm super excited about this detox stuff you're going to do with your herbalist. I'd love to hear more, but I'm not going to jump into it without knowing.
No.
And so, and then some other things that I've noticed. He has conversation with us now, and it's not, scholarly conversation, but it's, I want to go play outside. Come play with me. We have a neighbor who has a big dog that likes to come into our yard. And before, he had just didn't recognize her. Now, and she's such an old, sweet lady dog, he'll go and lay on her, like literally lay on top of her and love her. And she loves on him. And he's showing affection to animals, and like he recognizes my mom now. And there's still, obviously things to work on, but he's here again. He's present. And I've noticed when I think sometimes that he's not paying attention, he'll answer a question that I've asked maybe my other son. He'll turn around and answer it. And I'm just like, oh, because I was so used to him you get used to that. And you think, okay, well, he's not really paying attention to me anyways. No, he's paying attention now, and he's making it known. So.
That's incredible. I would like to ask you a couple of questions here to round this conversation, just to finish this conversation with digging into your knowledge, the knowledge that you've shared all the way through this conversation. But what's the most important thing you can say to moms about diagnosing a child with autism? When you have that suspicion, what's on your heart and mind that needs to be said about diagnosis from your perspective? And we all have different ways of dealing with this, but I'm just curious about yours.
My personal opinion is, at first, and it depends, obviously. We are very blessed and fortunate that we don't have to depend on resources to help us. And thank the good Lord that we don't have to depend on government resources. I didn't want to seek a diagnosis because it doesn't change anything, in my opinion. To us, it didn't make a difference because we weren't going to seek immediate assistance. We weren't going to seek, any type of, any programs or anything like that, or any government funding. We just were like, there's no point in seeking a diagnosis. We wanted to get to the root of the problem. I started to the root to the problem. And I was like, if we address this, and very similar, and I was so grateful to hear it from you, and I hope somebody can hear it from me, get to the root of the problem before you do the diagnosis, because there may not be a diagnosis, because without symptoms, why would there be a diagnosis? I know at this time, if we were to take him in and have him tested, they wouldn't be able to conclusively say anything. And my husband tells me this. He is in special education. He's like, Ashley, there is no way that he could get a diagnosis at this point.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, I know. It's a miracle. It gives me chill bumps too, because start with yourself, fix yourself, help yourself. And if I can give permission the way that you gave it to me, it's okay. Take care of yourself, love yourself, rest, figure out who you are. And if you meet all your needs, and now it's funny, like when I'm tired, I look, or when I'm having a bad day, I'm like, okay, did I eat well? Did I sleep well? Have I put knowledge inside of my head that's good? If I'm having a bad day, I might go turn my phone on and listen to a good song that I remember from, whatever, a happier time. And it gives me that good energy, and I release good endorphins. And I'm like, did I exercise? Did I over exercise? Did I clean too much? Did I check the list off. And then usually by the time before I get to the end, I'm like, okay, it was one of these things. And it's the same with our children. I feel like if we go down the boxes, like if my son has a tantrum in the grocery store, and he has, before, and hasn't in a while, but if it's like a too much noise or too much this or too much that, I'm like, okay, what did he have for breakfast this morning? Did he sleep well last night? Has he had screams? Is there too much sugar? Is his blood sugar low? Did he have a snack? Did I pack the right snack? It's all of these things. And usually before I get to the end of the list, I find it and I'm like, that's what it was. And I'm not above being in the grocery store and opening a banana or whatever and giving it to him.
Yeah. So good. Well, you actually, with that, you answered the question that I had, which is, what's the most important thing about understanding your own body? But then let me ask you one last question, and that is, from your perspective, what's most important for moms to know about the connection between our children's symptoms and us?
Oh, there's so much to that.
I know it's a whole podcast in
So,
itself.
so much. I can say this, when you first join, it will be super simple. You will see I'm in a bad mood. Usually they're in a bad mood, but then it gets to be deeper and you see, even so much so we figured out that my husband being on his phone at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning when he couldn't sleep, that's about the time my son was waking up. They're connected to us.
Totally.
And if I'm frustrated or if I'm flustered, there is a 99% chance it's going to affect one of my sons, if not both of my sons. That's why it says, go back to you, fix you, figure out what's going on with you, help your metabolism, help your life. I mean, I didn't join this tribe to lose weight. I mean, it's not a weight loss program. I just wanted to just change my overall, every aspect of my life. I've changed, this needs change. And that's the way it is with our kids' symptoms. I mean, if we don't stop and say, all right, I'm having a bad day. I didn't sleep last night. I haven't slept good in a month. And then expect our children to perform. We already have high anxiety and they can feel that. And these little children are so intuitive. I mean, my son, it's interesting. If he comes downstairs and he notices that all right, it's almost time for us to leave for school. You guys slept a little later than usual. There's a little of that rigidity that shows up. So we stop. Sometimes I'll turn on music and we'll dance it out and get it all out, get all the bad out and start over. They feel everything and they're just so bright. They know, and they're here to call you to the table, because if my son hadn't ramped up his symptoms, I might not have ever changed. And that's the biggest blessing. And I thank God. My husband and I stood in the driveway the other morning and prayed about it. And we were like, thank you, God, for all of this, even the hard, bad, because if it hadn't have happened, and if it wasn't still kind of happening in some ways, and we weren't still on this journey, we wouldn't be able to change. We'd be asleep and we would just go down the beaten path. And it's not always the best just to be normal,
Amen. That's just, what an incredible way of ending this conversation. Just connecting all the dots. And I really love the way that you say that, thank God he ramped up the symptoms, because if he didn't ramp up the symptoms, we would still be asleep. So with that, Ashley, is there anything that you haven't been asked that you want to share? Or do you feel like we've covered everything in this conversation when it comes to your incredible journey?
If I could just say, just be kind to yourselves, give yourself some grace. I just remember, and it's interesting, you gave me so much grace because I had never seen it before. I'd never given it to myself. When all of that guilt hit and I was like, okay, a lot of this is my fault. A lot of the things I've done, a lot of the decisions I've made were not good. I had this guilt, but you showed me grace. And then I was able to turn around and give grace back to myself. And then in turn, give it to my children. If you can give yourself some grace, any mom out there that thinks they're lost and I can't do this, no, you can. Give yourself some grace. It's not always easy. And I love how you had us look at our inner child. And I have a picture of me and my sister when we were so little and so cute. And I look at that little girl and I'm like, I would never give up on you. I would never leave you in this. So we're going to figure it out. I'm going to feed you. I love you. We're going to take care of ourselves and it'll be okay. So.
Wow. You're just incredible.
Thank you. You are.
So much for sharing this. I just know that this will bring so much hope to other moms. And I love and thank you so much for being honest about the fact that it's not a linear journey. It's been difficult all the way through, and that we always still have a ways to go. But with this approach and the strength and the change, I mean, talking to you now compared to when I spoke to you for the first time, it is two different people. And to me, it feels like you've become the woman that you were supposed to be. Maybe the woman that you lost along the way when we leave ourselves, whether it's because of what we eat or the things that we don't want to face, or things that we postpone. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being in this community, for being hope, delivering hope for so many moms, for being courageous and sharing your faith, because I do believe that that's such a big part of it too. So thank God for you, Ashley, and thank you for being in my life as well. Just love you so much, and thank you for sharing your story.
I love you, Nika. Thank you for everything you've done. You paved the way for a lot of us. You were a beacon of hope for me, and I hope that this can be the same for somebody else. And it's hard. Every day it's not easy, but there's hope, and that is the biggest thing.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for bringing that hope. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashley.
All right.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
I hope this was as great an experience for you to watch as it was for me to record. Such a great glimpse of the effort that we need to put into a transformation process. It's not easy. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. If you want to check out Ashley's pictures before and after and want more of the details, go to the description, the podcast description page at barefootautismwarriors.com/podcasts with an S /140 for 140, which is this podcast episode. And if you want to talk to me about what we did to get Ashley to where she is now, you can always send me an email at contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, or you can download one of my free guides at barefootautismwarriors.com, or follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Facebook is Barefoot Autism Warriors, the Facebook group. Instagram is my name, Ninka Bernadette Mauritzen. Until next time, take care.